Kirk, what is the fall like for you, balancing the National Football League and all your college responsibilities?
It is. It's almost like I brace for it when I get to July 4th. It's like, okay, the summer's over, and I kind of probably like players and coaches. They look at that weekend as a great weekend, but it's kind of the end of the summer, and then you get into August, and it's go time. I mean, I love what I do, but it's basically three jobs in one season. Doing the Thursday night game is my first kind of bucket that I try to stay focused on throughout the early part of the week, and then I have a 3 hour college game day show where we do all the teams and all the games all over the country, and then I call a game later on Saturday. That's usually a high profile game on ABC, and so yeah, it's very, as a prep guy, it's very important for me to just try to keep everything on its own legal pad. So I have the Thursday night group, then I have the college game day, and then the game that I call. But trying to keep everything organized is quite a challenge.
But what's your weekly prep like after you get done with that game Saturday night? Maybe you get home Sunday. Can you take us through the week?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I do usually do a Saturday night game. I get home usually about 2 in the morning on Sunday, and then I'm a dad. I have four boys. Three of them are out of the house now, but they like to come back home on Sundays, and which is great. And we like to watch football together, like normal families. And I used to use Sunday as a dad day, or like a try to sleep kind of day. And now I'll use an example. This past Sunday, I have Patriots and Jets, so I'm dialed into the Patriots and what they're doing. I'm watching the Jets. As I get on down to Tennessee, and I'm kind of plugged into that now. I watch it when you watch it when you get ready to call a game. You watch it very differently than if it's just on and someone's talking to you. Like I'm watching it like locked in kind of thing, and then I go back obviously and watch it more before the game. But Monday is a combination of college game day. Nick Saban, Pat McAfee, all these guys are on the
Mm.
Zoom at 9:30 on a Monday. So I do that for about an hour and a half. Tuesday, I have a Saturday night call with my producer for that broadcast. All along Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is all about, I've already got my board right here for my Thursday night game before I hopped on with you. I just did a call with PFF, just kind of dialing in. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is really locked in on Thursday, but juggling game day and juggling the Saturday. And then once I call the game Thursday night, I get on the plane to fly to wherever I'm going. I get there usually about 2 in the morning. It's like, okay, that one's gone. Then I flip into game day mode. So really all day Friday is game day. And also the game that I'm about to call. And then I finish game day at noon Eastern. And then I got 6 more hours to really dial in on a lot of my notes and things that I've tried to gather throughout the week for the game I'm about to call that night. So I try to use every minute I can after game day, getting ready for my 7:30 p.m. game on ABC that night. So yeah, man, I my whole career, I've always kind of approached my career as I'm going to be the most prepared guy when I go on air. It gives me a lot of confidence. And the challenging part of my job is not the execution on air. It's my stressful part is like you're talking to me right now. I'm a little bit stressed because I got to get a hold of coordinators, and if I can
Mm.
get all my prep done, man, the job, the game, it is so much fun. I love calling Thursday night with Al, and it's just a matter of getting to that point where I get all my people that I need to talk to, my film that I need to watch, all that work. It just kind of makes me just relax. And then on air, it's just having fun because you have a lot of information, kind of like you're loading your gun and you're ready to go into war. That's kind of how I feel when I go into a broadcast if I've done my prep.
What was your initial reaction when Amazon came calling a couple years ago with this opportunity and said, "Hey, listen, we want you to be up in the booth with Al Michaels"?
My career, I started years ago, back in the late '90s with Mike Tirico, and that he and I kind of came up together, and we worked about probably 8 years together, calling games on Thursday night, and he went to Monday Night Football, and then I went to work for Brent Musburger on Saturday night. So I worked with Brent, another guy like Al that I always watched and admired and looked up to, and Brent and I worked on the Saturday ABC package for a number of years, calling the biggest college football games, national championships, and all that. And that was quite a thrill. And then Chris Fowler, who I worked game day with initially, he came into the booth. So I've worked with Tirico and then Musburger and then Chris Fowler, who I still work with. And then to have an opportunity to work with Al Michaels. I mean, those are the four guys that I've worked with in my career. Clearly, I mean, I was a kid, when the Olympics started, going back to 1980, do you believe in miracles type of thing? And, all the way through his career, the Super Bowls, the Olympics, everything that he's done. So needless to say, it was quite a thrill when they asked me to do the games, because I'm a big NFL fan, and then to be able to work with Al and Freddie Godelli, who was our producer. Now he's our executive producer. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have been more honored and humbled to be able to be asked to join the crew.
What's the difference for you being in the booth for an NFL game as opposed to being in the booth for a college game? Ball is ball, but obviously the rosters are very different in terms of size. But can you talk about, maybe some of the similarities when you get up there, but also
Yeah.
listen, the National Football League, it's a different animal.
So true. If you go back, if we went back 10 years ago when we were doing, if they would ask me to do this, I feel like the NFL and the college game were so different.
Yeah.
It's the college game is obviously, if you watch it, it's a lot of up tempo offenses. It's the quarterback looking over and he'll see signs, whereas and I think it just creates a very, very almost hectic offense. And you're talking about 85, 90 snaps. These guys in college are trying to go, 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 go. And in the pros, 10 years ago, it was very different. Now I think, and pro coaches and coordinators will tell you, I think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid really changed how the NFL offensive coordinators approach things. I think Andy Reid was one of the first guys to really have success saying, you know what, instead of asking these guys who since high school have been running a certain style of offense, why don't I adjust my sophisticated West Coast offense to his skill set? And obviously we've seen the success of that. And I think it really, Lamar Jackson and what Baltimore has done over the years, adjusting to his skill set, instead of saying, we're the National Football League, you adjust to what we are. I think it's gone the other way. I think the offenses in the NFL are adjusting now to these college quarterbacks. And I think the ones that find the kind of that secret sauce, because everyone's different. J.J. McCarthy, who's injured now in Minnesota, is different than what Bo Nix and what Sean Payton are trying to figure out in Denver, Bryce Young in Carolina. I mean, you can go round and round. Nobody has the answer, and it's probably the most confusing thing. I mean, think about the amount of money, general managers, owners, head coaches, scouts, everyone's looking at college quarterbacks trying to figure out, Peyton Manning and Phillip Rivers and Aaron Rodgers, the traditional guy that sits in the pocket, 7-step drop and distributes the ball. That's kind of a dying breed.
Yeah.
Now it's Mahomes type of guy. It's Caleb Williams with the Bears. That's what's coming out of college. And so for my job, it's not as different as you would think because of the similarities of the NFL coordinators coming down to college to talk to Lincoln Riley, to talk to Ryan Day, who's the head coach at Ohio State, and try to figure out, help me to understand these college quarterbacks, to understand how I can put an offense together. So I think it's more similar now than it ever has been. And I think right now, I personally feel the NFL is at a crossroads where I think
Interesting.
Tom Brady on a podcast recently talked about how these quarterbacks aren't really prepared to come into the NFL and deal with the complexity of the defenses, to deal with the complexity of just calling a play in the NFL forget about execution, just calling it and knowing that in a huddle, no one huddles hardly in college. So just that I think is very challenging. And I think we're really at kind of an interesting time where you notice the numbers are down in the NFL. Scoring is down. Offensive production is down. And I think it's because defensive coordinators are saying, okay, let's put a shell on our defense up top. Let's put two safeties. Let's make these college quarterbacks who are in their first, second, third year, let's make them be patient. Let's make them be willing to run the football and hit the underneath pass and make them be efficient for 12 plays without having a turnover, penalty, whatever it might be, and make them execute in the red zone. And right now, that's working. Field goal. I think they had 73 field goals in week 2 of the NFL. 73. I mean, that's over 4 field goals per game. And I think it just speaks volumes of where we are right now, where the offensive numbers are down. And I think the defense has figured out how to mess with the minds of a lot of young quarterbacks right now in the league.
That is a perfect transition because Aaron Rodgers was talking about in the locker room this week, Kirk, about umbrella coverages. You rarely see single high anymore. And he's asked directly, hey, what's the counter on that? He said, you got to run the football. Are the Jets in a good position long-term here in 2024 because they do have Rodgers at quarterback and he has seen all these things? And with that being said, what's the evolution of the Jets pass offense going to be as time progresses?
You kind of have a cheat code with Aaron Rodgers. You have something that no one else has, and that's the ability. You essentially have an offensive coordinator at 40 years old who has the chalk last. When I say the chalk last, if you have two guys who really know the game, one's an offensive guy, one's a defensive guy, and they're at a board, and it's like, well, I'm going to do that. Well, if you do that, I'm going to do this. Well, if you do that, no problem. And Aaron's that guy in that argument with the chalk. The defense can only do so much from the sideline. At some point, that radio goes off in 15 seconds. The green dot closes down, and now it's Aaron Rodgers' game, just like it used to be Peyton Manning's game. And that's such an advantage. And we talked to him yesterday for about an hour. We were talking about this, and he loves the process of trying to figure out the weakness of a defense. And on the fly, you see so many teams running a run pass option, but I feel like Aaron does it differently, where he'll rely on a guy like Garrett Wilson or whoever it is to be able to make a play where most quarterbacks, they don't think about trying to attack a defense in a certain way. Aaron Rodgers will do that. And I think it's exciting to think about where the Jets, I think, are just starting to kind of scratch the surface. Let's not forget, he was hurt in the 4th play of the 23 season. He lost the entire year. He's still, even as good as he is, he's still kind of settling in with the pieces around him. He is human, and it takes a few weeks for the offensive line, 3 new faces up there. If you throw in Vera Tucker, who's out most of the year, there's kind of 4 new pieces. All these guys are kind of gelling together. And as that gets better and better, they're going to continue to run the ball with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. They're going to continue to find ways to attack defenses out on the perimeter. So I'm really excited starting Thursday to see where this thing's going with Aaron Rodgers in charge of it and what the potential of it is. It's very fascinating to me. I know we don't have Bill Belichick over there, but you still have his scheme. And to watch that cat and mouse game between Aaron Rodgers. Now, Juwan Bentley, who is kind of the Aaron Rodgers of their defense, is out. He's out for the year. So what does that do to New England's defense? How does that handcuff them in that battle that's going to be going on? But I'm excited. I mean, where they go after Aaron steps down, I mean, that's going to be a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
But for where we are in 2024, I think this offense has real potential, especially with the guys that they have out on the perimeter, led by Garrett Wilson.
You played the game. How much do you appreciate watching Rodgers, what he does, not only throwing the football, because a lot of people would make the argument that nobody has ever thrown it better than Aaron, but everything he does pre-snap to get his players in the proper play, because we're seeing it early on here in his Jets tenure, just so much audibling he does, or changing the plays at the last second to get the Jets in a favorable spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's as a guy who played quarterback, I sit there, I think we all do. You marvel at it. I talked to Peyton Manning about it. Peyton used to do it in a different way. Aaron will do it with almost like he's I said a coach, but he'll do certain little hand signals and things to try to make sure. Tell you, you better know the game if you're playing around him, because he's relying on you to make adjustments on the fly with him. So, there's a certain level of expectation of knowledge of a defense and knowledge of what he wants to be able to do. I loved his story, and I know he shared it with you guys about Breece Hall came over to him and said, "Hey, if that linebacker walks out there with me, I can take him." And I think that's what, at 40 years old, that's what Aaron Rodgers loves. That wasn't in the play design throughout the week with Nathaniel Hackett. Like, hey, we're going to move Breece Hall out and get him. That happened in the game. That was like an in-game thing. And I think that the game of that, the XO aspect of on the fly, figuring out an answer, how can we win today against what we're seeing? And the fact that a young guy like Breece Hall came up to him and said, hey, he loved that. He loved that Breece Hall's taking ownership and trying to like be part of what are the answers, instead of just Aaron Rodgers kind of standing on top of a mountaintop saying, here are all the answers. He could do that, but he wants Garrett Wilson to come up to him on the sideline and communicate with what he's seeing. He wants Breece Hall to come up to him. So he's kind of using that as an illustration and an example of kind of where they are now and where they're going to continue to head. But I thought that was really cool to hear a young guy that's really excited to be playing with him, coming up to him saying, basically, hey, coach, I think I can beat this linebacker. And Aaron saying, let's do it. And then they did it, and I think that's pretty cool to watch.
You and Al are calling 12 divisional games this year out of the 17. Your first game was actually inside the AFC East. You were calling the Jets and the Patriots, of course, Thursday night at MetLife Stadium. Before you take a look at these two teams in person, what's your thoughts globally on the AFC East?
Well, after last week's game and calling it, I think all of us kind of looked at Miami with Mike McDaniel and the speed and Tua coming off the year that he had last year. I think a lot of people were excited to see, and maybe still could be excited to see what Miami can do. But when I called the game, when I left that stadium, I remember saying down on our way out of there, something's going on with Buffalo. They lose Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, and I think a lot of people just thought, okay, well, they've got the tight ends, and they're trying to figure out who can be their next good receiver. I'm telling you, intangibles are a big part of the game. I think part of the reason the Jets are so good on defense isn't just scheme. It's that they love each other. They care about each other. They want to have each other's back. Buffalo, I feel like right now, it's only week 2. We're heading into week 3. I get it. A long way to go. But they just showed me something where it's always kind of been Josh Allen's team, ... There's Stephon Diggs. I feel like now, without a doubt, it is Josh Allen's team. And I think they're rallying around Josh Allen in a very similar way the Jets are going to rally around this year of Aaron Rodgers. But I think it's the style of play that Josh Allen has. He's running for first downs. He's hurdling people. I think that his teammates really look at him and, they'll headbutt him and they'll chest bump him. And it just, there's a different feel there of togetherness that makes me feel like Buffalo is going to be a really tough out. I've also been impressed with what we've seen from the Patriots. They were kind of like, okay, Bill Belichick's no longer there. They've got so many new faces. Drake May's not ready. And yet I went to the game I live in Cincinnati. I went to the game when they played Cincinnati. And I thought, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is back. No problem. Cincinnati will win. And I was like, they're playing old-fashioned New England football. They're winning the line of scrimmage. They're running the ball. They're making it tough on the quarterback by disguising a lot. They're kind of doing the little things. They get to the fourth quarter. They kind of look up at the scoreboard. We're within 3. Let's find a way to win. Or we're up 3. Let's hold on to this. It worked against Cincinnati, into overtime against a really good Seattle team. So I think it's interesting to see where they are. So I think Buffalo, as we sit here at week 3, maybe the team to beat. I can't wait to see Aaron Rodgers and this offense from New York continue to grow, and that defense is, even with the injuries. We'll see how good they can't withstand too many more injuries, but I think the division is going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds. And bottom line is, whoever can stay healthy, I think, is going to be the team that at the end of the day ends up winning the division.
And you got some intriguing matchups coming up because you guys are going to be back at MetLife on Halloween. It's the Jets and the Houston Texans. And I know a lot of people have high hopes for the Texans this year, and that's one of the more talented young football teams out there. So
Yeah.
it's going to be intriguing as well. We know you got to go. Thank you so much for taking time today.
Yeah.
Are fans going to be able to see Ben at MetLife?
Yeah, I'm hoping. He's been getting credentialed every stadium that I go to, college and pro. So he actually was able to come last year when we were around. I think it was in Cleveland. So I'm hoping to be able to have a chance when the Jets came to Cleveland. I think Aaron had a chance to meet Ben that game when he was just traveling around with the team. I'm hoping the Jets will green light him. If so, I'd love to bring him in. He'll be with me. So love to bring him into the stadium pregame, and sometimes he hangs out up in the booth when we call the game. So it's been a lot of fun. He's doing great.
Well, we'll be sure to say hello. Continued success. Have fun up there in the booth with Al. And then Saturday night, I think you are in Norman, Oklahoma for Tennessee and OU. That should be an interesting one as well. Thanks, Kirk.